supervision of Prof. Zoo. So the purpose of this interview is basically to create a safe space for you in order for you to share what you're feeling and so on. So I just want to let you know that everything that we're discussing in today's session would be kept confidential. And we will have to breach confidentiality in case any of the information seems like it may pose a threat or harm to yourself or to other people. So you could feel free to discuss about anything that you want to talk about, anything that you're comfortable sharing. So how are you feeling today?
I feel okay. Yeah, I feel okay.
That's good. How has your day been so far?
My day has been not bad so far, honestly. I did not get enough sleep, but for the most part, it's going okay.
So to begin, can you tell me what brought you in here today?
So I've been having issues with sleep in the past few months, to the point that I constantly get headaches every other day, and yeah, it's just been weighing on me for quite a while now.
I see. So if I'm understanding this correctly, lately you've been having difficulties with your sleep, and this is leading to headaches.
Yeah, and they kind of just pop up out of the blue.
Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
So, I used to get them a little bit during high school, and they, for the most part, had stopped, or at least had spaced out enough to not be a recurrent issue. But over the past 2-3 months, they've started to get more frequent, and it's, for the most part, I can manage it, but sometimes it seems that it's interfering with the kind of sleep I'm getting. So it feels more so like the cycle of I don't get enough sleep and then I get a headache, but because of the pain, I'm not able to fall asleep or get the kind of sleep that I need.
That must have been difficult for you. So you mentioned that this began first in high school?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think contributed to that?
I think high school for me, for the most part, has been an easy experience, but there were certain times where the pressure got really intense. So I would get really stressed out, or I would freak out over exams and the material that I had to cover for it, and that stress would start giving me headaches. But so since it started happening, it's never fully reduced. So it comes and goes, but now it's more frequent.
Okay, so basically you're trying to say that academic pressure or the materials basically in your course is causing you to feel restless in a way in which you are feeling worried.
Yeah, the not just academic pressure, but also it's a culmination of how tightly packed our routine is when it comes to the first semester. Not to mention, this is my first time studying abroad, so there are a lot of new factors that are coming to play, and I'm just doing my best to manage all of them.
It seems like what you've been dealing with has significantly in a way affected many parts of your life.
Yeah.
So could you help me understand that better?
Okay, it just leaves me really exhausted. So, either I'm spending all of my effort trying to make sure that I am focused enough to get through the day, or I'm just so engrossed in making sure that I get everything right that as soon as I get a few minutes or a few hours to relax, I just crash. And what ends up happening with that is that even if I end up taking a nap, it does not fully recharge me, and I still end up having to go through the next day with a certain level of exhaustion.
So no matter how much rest you try to like slot into your day, it still feels like you're not fully rested.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to ask you a little bit more about what you've been dealing with. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So, firstly, it is not just your academic pressure, but it is also, in a way, that worry that you are also abroad right now, having to manage your entire life. Can you tell me a little bit more about how coming abroad has affected how you've been feeling?
I think it's just new areas that I have not experienced in such a manner because um, it's a lot more responsibility than you think you're going to take up. For example, you don't realize how easy you have it when you are living with your parents and you have your siblings around, and the house is always full all the time. And then you move to a different place and your whole routine changes. So it's just been me trying to refocus myself and adjust myself to a routine that I've not experienced before. So, yeah.
Could it be that you feel like your routine in a way has become a little bit unfamiliar than how it used to be?
Yeah, definitely. It feels a lot more like uncharted territory. So, for example, when I used to live back home, I used to share a room with my sister, and now for the first time, I have my own space, and so does she. But while it is something that I've wanted for a long time, it is also something that I'm not used to having. It's like suddenly I have an excess amount of space that I don't necessarily know what to do with yet because I'm still figuring out what that looks for me.
Okay, well, if you don't mind, I'd like to understand a little bit more about your concern. So, we're gonna explore it about when this meeting in specific started and how that developed for you. Now that we're talking about how you've been feeling in terms of having this in a way, newfound space, newfound independence away from your siblings or your family. When did you first notice this happening?
Notice me struggling with it, or
When did you first notice that this space that you now have, when has that started impacting the way that you've been feeling?
I think in the beginning I was really gleeful about it because I was engrossed in all of the possible things that I could get to do in my free time. But then as university and other responsibilities and time progressed, I was not able to get to it the way I thought I would. So it's just fallen back in my head to something I would like to get onto, but I never seem to get the time. So it still feels like it's stuck and hanging in balance.
So has it in a way become worse for you, or how does that mean? Or has it stayed the same?
I don't know if I can say worse, but it's definitely changed. And I'm trying to pinpoint when exactly that shift happened in my head, but I think the more exhausted I got and the more I started struggling with sleep and headaches, the more I stopped being excited about the idea that I have my own space and freedom to do whatever I please. It just stopped feeling as important as it used to.
Okay. So if you could clarify for me, the problems that you're having with sleep, it has strictly come from your pressures from university as well as having to manage your life independently as of recently.
Yeah, it's just been me trying to do everything on time, but sometimes things don't happen the way I want them to, so I kind of, for a bit, end up losing it. Like, I like things to have a certain order to them when I'm getting to them, but some way or the other, it feels like it never happens the way I am wanting it to, and I don't really know if it's me trying to bite off more than I can chew, or is it just that I'm not managing my time properly enough that I can save enough of that time to sleep well. And even when I do end up saving time, where I go to bed early, I end up not getting good quality sleep, so I just toss and turn. And I could be in bed for like 8 hours and it still does not feel like good quality sleep. So I just repeat the cycle of going to university tired and then feeling like I was more tired than I was the previous day.
That seems like a lot for you to manage, and it seems like there's a lot you've been thinking about.
Yeah.
So, how long has this been happening as of recently?
I would say the past month or so. So yeah, for approximately a month.
That sounds like a very significant period for you. So how did that affect you emotionally?
I think I'm very used to being I don't want to say the word stoic, but I'm used to being in control of my emotions and how I respond to things. But since I'm not getting the rest, and I feel like I'm also irritated about the fact that I'm not getting that rest. So I end up just being erratic and all over the place sometimes, and that in turn makes me even more upset because I'm not used to being this version of myself. I'm used to being composed and collected in terms of how I deal with my emotions. So just the the volatile nature of it ends up making me even more irritated.
I see. So when you say that you used to be in control of yourself before, what was that
say that I would I was able to manage my reactions to things a lot better because sometimes I get really nervous or anxious about things. So very early on, I learned to kind of make sure that I don't have a response that ends up making me even more nervous. Because if it happens that way, then it just feels like a cycle of like the more nervous I get, the worse it feels. So instead of overthinking or overanalyzing things, I kind of just like to sit with what I'm feeling and understand why I'm feeling the way I am. But since I barely have enough time to rest or focus on anything else, I feel like I'm not getting around to managing my emotions better. So I just end up feeling really antsy and anxious almost all the time.
So I see that, you're trying to say that because of all this new piled up tasks and so-called demanding lifestyle in a way has allowed you to not have the proper space or the proper time to, in a way, reflect on emotions the way you used to have.
Yeah.
So, could you rate how you've been feeling in terms of this from a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being not having the control and 10 being you have the control.
I would say I'm kind of in between. I keep going back and forth, so maybe around like a 5 to 6.
I think in that sense you're still, in a way, a little bit, I could say, in control in some manner.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So to better understand your current experiences, I'd like to learn a little bit about your background, if that's okay. We will come back to what you've been talking about. But if you're all right. So, how old are you now?
I'm 25. I will turn 26 this September.
All right. And as everything that we've talked about, you are studying, correct?
Yeah, I'm currently doing my master's.
All right. So, how has that experience been for you? I understand that from what you've mentioned, master's is a very taxing thing for you.
I think besides whatever I've been talking about, it has still been a learning and rewarding experience because I feel like I've been learning things in a much more in-depth manner, and I really appreciate the way that has been happening. So I do really enjoy my course material and my professors and the way classes have been happening. So I enjoy every single thing that I've been learning. It's just like a pros and cons sort of a situation.
Well, it is good to know that you have a good experience about your education at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to ask about where you've been staying. You did mention that you're studying abroad right now. So, where do you currently live?
Currently, I live with my sister and I have 2 other roommates. And I live a little further away from the university, but we make the commute work.
And how has that been for you? Has that been easy?
It's not been the worst because for my bachelor's, I used to travel to a different city to do my bachelor's, so that would be around a 2 hour ride every morning and evening. So it's definitely not unfamiliar, but since again it's a different situation to, it does get exhausting at times. But I would like to say that I am easing into it.
Okay, so it seems that you have had some experience with traveling further in terms of.
Yeah, definitely. This is not even the worst of it. Sometimes it would take me 2.5, 3 hours to get back home when I was doing my bachelor's. So, yeah.
In a way, do you feel like that has eased from your previous experience?
I think it's definitely prepared me for how I deal with the exhaustion of traveling now, because I've learned to sort of anticipate the amount of time it takes. Yeah.
Alright. So, can you describe how the environment is of you living with your sister and your roommates? You mentioned, how is that environment like for you?
It's actually been pretty nice because we're four girls, so we just kind of were able to be, just four girls living in an apartment in a way that you don't always get to do when you're with your family. But it has also been very different, I would say, than a family environment. Because my family has always been like a living room family, so we wouldn't usually spend time in our rooms by ourselves except for like if one of us is on like an important call or like we're doing our homework or stuff like that. But besides that, we will almost always be in the living room together, so there's always some sort of chaos going on. But I think I'm noticing that contrast a lot more because I'm now living with people who are close to my age, if not younger. So it's definitely different, but not something that I find myself complaining about. Just like it's nice to navigate. Living together with people in a different manner than you would if it was with family.
That seems nice. So, do you feel like it has, in a way, been helpful for you living with your sister and your roommates?
I think it has, but not in a way that I thought it would be. It has definitely made me understand how contrasting living with friends versus living with family can be. And it's also made me appreciate both in a very different light. I think when we're younger, we don't really realize how much our parents carry on their shoulders. So coming here and handling all of those things by myself, even if it's with the support of my roommates and my sister, has been eye-opening in a certain manner. But I think besides that, it's been enjoyable because when you're with your family, you sort of have like a specific routine that you follow that is not yours all the time. It's your parents, right? Like you're living under that, and then your parents, like, of course, you have a certain amount of respect for a way of living, but like when you're just with like people your own age, you have a lot more flexibility because you're not necessarily related to them in that manner. So your response to their expectations is different, and the need for approval is also a different kind than it would be if it was your parents.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, it seems that living with your roommates now, in a way, has given you that sense of autonomy that why you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so speaking about family, I'd like to understand your relationship with them as well as the support systems around you, if that's okay. So, how would you describe, generally, how would you describe the relationship that you have with your family while you're at home with them?
I think I would say complicated to start with, but it's always been like a lot of back and forth between. I am really fond of them, but I also don't feel like I can be fully myself with them, if that makes sense. Like, there's always a line between, okay, these are my friends, but they're not necessarily my friends. So it's a fine line that I feel like I balance now and then. But for the most part, it's a really I think complicated is the best way I can put it, to be honest.
Okay, so basically, you're trying to say that as much as you get along with them quite well, there are also certain instances in which it is difficult to be yourself fully while you're around them.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you describe to me in depth about the relationship that you specifically have with your parents, your mom and your dad?
Um, I think growing up, I was closer to my dad than my mom, just because I always felt like I was my dad's favorite. Obviously, that was when and it was just me and my siblings had not been born. But even when it was just me, I felt like I was his like something that he deeply prioritized and tries. Like I felt truly valued. And growing up, that's remained so in some certain aspects, in the sense that I do feel like I've been closer to him than to my mom. But in recent years, I've also developed a closer relationship with my mom, in the sense that I feel like she now sees me more so as a mature person than just her child. So when she talks to me about things, I can tell that she trusts my opinion, and she does not see me as a child anymore. So that definitely feels good in terms of validation. Like I enjoy feeling trusted by my parents.
So in a way, you're trying to say that as of recently, your mom has been able to see you as your own person and make sure that your feelings are in a way valued and understood.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you, I would say, when did you notice this difference in your mom, and what do you think made her change her perception of you?
I think so. When I was younger, I was too old to be going around playing with the rest of my cousins and siblings, and I was too young to be around the adults. But what that helped me with was I could just enter any room quietly and just sit and observe, and nobody would really notice that I was there because I would not really say anything. So what that led me to do was I would just observe the kind of things the adults of the family were saying, and I would see the kind of things my parents would agree with versus disagree with, and the kind of just behavioral responses they would have. I used to find it really enjoyable to be part of like the in crowd, to that when I would sit with the rest of my older family members, I would kind of feel like I was part of like a secret society who's getting to see this. So doing that kind of made me, I would say, think of things in a lot more mature manner only because I observed it so often and from so many people. So that definitely helped me sort of find a meaning with my parents in the way I express myself because I knew what they would agree with and what they would disagree with. And once I did that, I think they were able to understand that they could trust my opinions on things and trust my judgment just because it seemed like not only similar to what they thought, but also that I understood what they were trying to say. So as soon as I realized that, I realized that I can be more than just a child to them. Like my words of opinions can hold value. So that was when I noticed that this is something that I can use to my advantage.
So in a way, having had that first-hand experience of observing your parents or any older family members have allowed you to, in a way, act in manners that are more inclined towards being mature or being an adult rather than you when you're around your siblings. Okay, so I'm going to ask some questions about your siblings. So, how many siblings do you have?
I have three siblings, all of them are younger than me. The first one, my sister, is who I live with and also who is my classmate. And my other sibling, I have one more sister and one more brother. My younger sister is, I would say, 18 and she's about to start university soon herself back home. And my brother is the youngest and most scholar of the family and he's, I would say, 10.
Okay, so you mentioned that one of your sisters is also your classmate. So this, in a way, changes the relationship that you have with her because she's not just your sibling, but she's also your classmate. So, could you tell me a little bit more about that? How has that been for you? How has that changed your relationship with her, if it did?
I think it's been, to be honest, a lot of back and forth. But I also think it's been good because I'm able to establish a relationship with her in a manner that is not influenced by my parents' opinions of how we should be behaving with each other or what we should be like. Because when we were really young, we would fight a lot. So that I do feel like and we were also much closer in age together, we don't really have that big of an age gap. So when we were younger, we were both immature and kids. But once we got older, we've been able to sort of move past that. And coming here has definitely changed a lot of things, but I genuinely do think it's changed things for the better just because we are now able to decide the pace and the development of our dynamic on our own terms without that many external influences. Because obviously when you're siblings and you are constantly observed and even to some certain extent compared by your family members, especially your parents, that does put a sort of hyper awareness of who we are to other people, but not having that sort of input from my parents has been nice, so that we can kind of just figure out where we stand on our own. And I feel like that's definitely helped my relationship with her be a lot better than it used to be when we were really young.
It seems like, in a way, you have found a social support, having your sister around you, and also the fact that your relationship has changed from when it used to be when you were younger from now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so do you feel supported by her?
I think when I was younger, I really struggled with the concept of leaning on a younger sibling because on one side I was told by my parents that I have to be the older, more mature, the more composed sibling, and it was also how I saw my parents behave with me. They were more so you are our child, right? Obviously, a sibling and a parent kid relationship is not the exact same, but they would still have an outlook of like, no, we cannot burden you with this because that is not your responsibility. So I kind of do think I internalized some of that growing up, so I would not necessarily share my problems with her because in my perspective I didn't want to burden her with things that are not her concern. But obviously coming here has been enlightening in the sense that both of us have realized that like we need to be each other's support because there really is no one else who can help each other the way we can. So that has definitely been a progress in our relationship that I'm really happy about and proud with. So yeah. So yeah, I definitely do feel like I can rely on her more now than when we were kids just because I know she's her own person and she's mature enough to deal with anything that I might be struggling with and vice versa. So yeah.
Okay, that was good. Could you explain a little bit about how your relationship is with your other siblings? You said you have a sister and a younger brother.
It's a lot more lighter, I would say, because they're really fun to tease. So we have like a lot of banter with them, and we kind of, I don't know if this is like an intentional thing, but we kind of tend to club together. So me and my sister would take turns teasing my other two younger siblings, and they fight a lot. So we end up having to also mediate their fights 9 times out of 10. So that's the kind of dynamic we share with them, but it's also very rewarding because we get to teach them things in a certain way that like I don't think parents can do because parents are almost always so engrossed with being authoritarian. But me and my sister can kind of switch roles between being authoritarian and also being like, okay, you can tell me things, but I can correct you if you're wrong, but I can also joke about it with you. So that's the kind of dynamic I share with my younger siblings.
It does seem like you are like a third parent to them in which you're able to look after them or teach them things which is way different than how it would be with your parents.
Yeah, definitely.
Alright. I would like to move on and ask a little bit about your social relationships, such as your friendships or even romantic relationships. So, if you could tell me a little bit about what your friendship is like back home and how it is now that you've moved abroad.
Most of my friends from back home are people I've known for a long time. I tend to kind of be more on the reserved side when it comes to making friends. Just because like I have a certain wariness when it comes to approaching people, and I'm not always comfortable making new friends, and I get really nervous or anxious when it comes to newer interactions. So it's definitely been a very contrasting experience because over the past few years I have gotten so used to being around people who already knew me for more than a few years that suddenly having to be in an environment where I'm around people who don't really know me is quite jarring in the sense that I'm not the kind of person in terms of behavior that's familiar to me, like something very hyper aware of things I say or I do because I'm aware of the fact that these aren't people I've grown up with. So I definitely do miss the sense of being anchored that you have when you have really close friendships. Especially because when I was a kid, I did not have that many close friends, and I would constantly. My only way of making sure I had friends was how can I be useful. So I used to have a lot of stationery. I was a stationery boarder as a kid, but I would also carry it around to school frequently. So I knew that whenever anyone needed anything, they would come to me. I would be the useful person for them. But beyond that, I didn't necessarily have really close emotional friendships. So I kind of would avoid saying anything that would make me seem even more like an outcast or even more so different than I already felt like I was from my other classmates. So I would kind of just smile and laugh and agree with pretty much everything. But once I made better friends when I got to my later years of high school, I was sort of able to discard a certain amount of that behavior, but obviously that urge sometimes still exists in the way I respond in group settings. I tend to kind of move back a little bit, take my space, and then have to kind of remind myself that this is not, I'm not going to school again like this. These are people who, yeah, I might not know, but I have no reason to be fully aware of them. So I end up having to take a step back, kind of talk myself through it, and then, yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that you would feel more comfortable with people that you've known for a long time and people that have known you for a longer time, and it does make you a little anxious when it comes to your friendships with people who are not really knowing you that well.
Yeah.
As well as the fact that you need to be doing certain things in order to be part of certain groups.
Yeah.
But as time has gone by, especially in high school, you were able to somehow talk yourself out of it, and that relationship that you had with yourself, that dynamic has changed because you do feel more in control of these situations.
Yeah, definitely.
So, as of recently, you did mention that your dynamic has changed in terms of how your friendship or the relationships that you try to create with people have changed. So, how has that affected your well-being as of generally?
I think just in general, I've been able to respond more honestly, even if it's someone I don't know. I do still get anxious when I'm around new people, and it takes me a while to ease up around being in like a new person's presence. But I think the difference is that I've learned what it's like to feel accepted, and before I was constantly chasing that sense of I want to say belonging. So I would constantly seek a certain amount of social approval. Like I would want to feel like I'm in, like I'm not on the outside looking in, but more that I am part of the group, I am part of the scene, I am part of whatever is happening. So I've definitely been able to manage that feeling of I'm missing out better, just because I've learned what it's like to be in a group and to be a part of a friendship that is that helps you kind of just exist the way you want to and not be behavior or interests or whatever that may be. So those are not things that I think about when I'm with my close friends. So just knowing that I've had that experience and that I have people like that in my corner definitely helps in the way I respond to newer people, because I'm not instantly jumping to the worst possible conclusion of, oh, they do not like me, because I know what it's like to be liked by your friends. So if that can happen once, then it's obviously something that means that I'm not necessarily a dislikable person. It's just something I've thought about myself. But since I'm able to maintain and cultivate friendships, and I've been able to do that over the past few years, I know that that is not necessarily true, and those are just my insecurities that only I can see and nobody else can see. So that having that experience has definitely shifted how I see myself and how I see myself through other people's eyes as well.
Okay. So it does seem like the relationship that you're having with your friends now is a lot better because you are able to take measures in which you tell yourself that as long as you are maintaining relationships with the people that know you for who you are, you in a way feel supported.
Yeah, for sure.
Alright, so I'd like to ask a little bit about any previous emotional or psychological experiences that you may have. Do you?
No, not necessarily. I don't think so, except for like just the stress that I've recently been experiencing.
Any medical history? Are you currently taking any medication?
No.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about, because you did mention about your sleep problems. So, how has that affected your appetite in any way?
No, I don't think so. I think the only impact that the only thing that has probably impacted my food intake is just not getting the time to cook meals and have them the way that I would at home. But one thing about like having a long day is that you need food and water to sustain you. So that's definitely not something I can avoid.
Alright, so it's basically just
Pretty much the same, honestly. I wish I had more time to properly cook, but beyond that, I think I'm eating myself.
Okay, so I would like to understand a little bit about how you've been managing your experiences overall. So when things do become stressful, it could be about your schedules, it could be about, as you mentioned, not having time to cook. What do you usually do to deal with this?
Firstly, try to take a nap, but what I usually find helps me is either reading or listening to music, or sometimes I just like to sort of journal and just jot down what I'm thinking. If it's something that I'm ready to confront and process, then I write it down, but sometimes I process it by writing it down. And if I feel like I want to not think about it, if I want to avoid it, then I just pick up a good book and yeah, disappear in that.
Okay, so you're saying that usually activities like reading or journaling has helped you in a way to cope with your stress?
Yeah, absolutely. Like just being able to wind down with that helps me sort of internally calm down, even if I'm not actively being like, oh, okay, what is this? What am I feeling? What am I thinking about? But while I'm focused on something else, I kind of just in the back of my head just calm down.
So, from what you've been doing to try to cope with your stress, do you feel like there has been any measures that you tried to take which was not helpful?
I do tend to rely on caffeine when I'm not able to get any sleep, or if I have too much to do and I end up feeling too sleepy. So the thing is that sometimes I just end up feeling sleepy at a very like unfortunate time where I have a lot of things to do, but my body just kind of feels like it's crashing because I did not get the kind of rest that I needed. So while I do love tea and coffee, even on its own, I feel like I tend to overdo it with the amount I consume because I use it to sort of stimulate myself to get things done. So that's definitely been something that has gotten a bit more unhealthy that I've been relying on to do my things. But in the meantime, it does help. I do get everything in order when I need to. But the crash that comes after is a lot more exhausting than it would be had I just taken a nap. So that's definitely been something that I feel like while it's helping me in the temporary moment, it might not be as good in the long run. So yeah.
So because in a way you feel like caffeine sometimes helps, but the aftermath of it is that it does make you feel way more exhausted than you initially did. In a way, do you feel like this has somewhat affected your studies, your schedule?
Um, I don't think it's affected my studies as much because it is helping me do them better. I think it's just affecting my physical exhaustion, and obviously caffeine is not necessarily good for sleep, but it's again it feels like a vicious cycle. So I try to leave a day in between. Like if I've gone too intense on my caffeine intake for a day or two, then I kind of try to make sure for the next 2 days I don't really reach for it that often. So the toll is definitely on me physically, the way I feel exhausted and the kind of sleep quality I get. But academically, I think it's been helping me more than not because I get to finish what I need to do.
In a way, it does feel like that has been your way of managing emotional stress.
Yeah, to a certain extent, yeah.
So, on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate of how effective this way of managing your stress has been?
I think it depends on how much I'm already pushing myself. Like if I am in a state where I'm okay for the time being, I'm on a good night's sleep and I've I don't have too many things looming over me science wise, then I would say a rating of like, you mean one would be how,
Yes, one would be the fact that it's not that effective and 10 being very effective.
in terms of how much caffeine comes. Uh, it's definitely more effective when I need it the most. So if I'm really tired, then it adds a lot of difference to how I get things done. So I would say maybe like a 7 or 8 in terms of effectiveness. But if I'm already not that exhausted to begin with, then I feel like I don't really need it as badly to get my work done. So I don't really consider its effectiveness at that time.
So you would say that basically it varies depending on what the situation is like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alright. So, well, basically, some people they tend to resort to other coping strategies. It could be through drinking alcohol sometimes. So, what about you?
No, I've not really felt the inclination to indulge in anything of that sort.
Okay. So basically, I asked everyone this next question because it helps to provide a better understanding about their coping. So, have there been times in which things felt really, really overwhelming that you wanted to escape in a way?
There have definitely been times where things have gotten too intense to the point that I wish I could just kind of like put a pause to it all and run away. But obviously, that's not really a realistic option. So, yeah.
Okay, so when you mentioned run away, I'd like to know because there are some people who sometimes have thoughts of harming themselves. So, what about you?
Actually, I find that really scary, so that's not something I've considered or let myself think about because I feel like things like that tend to harm yourself and your family members too. So, no, I've never really thought about something like
Thank you for sharing all of that. I just want to briefly summarize what I've heard to make sure I've understood everything correctly. So, from what you've shared, your sleeping problems or your difficulties in sleeping basically have, caused you to feel this way due to factors such as moving abroad, obviously, starting from that, and having, in a way, a very pressuring workload and stressful academic environment, which has obviously led you to feeling, in a way, anxious, but also at the same time not having to have the time to do things that you want to do on your own. But you did resort to things such as journaling or listening to music to cope with these, as well as the fact that your sister, as your classmate, has also been your support system in terms of helping you with this. So did I capture that accurately?
Yeah. Another thing that I would like to mention is that sometimes when it comes to my sleep issues, I have trouble either if I fall asleep, I have trouble staying asleep, and it's either that or I just have trouble falling asleep. So my sleep quality varies a lot to the point that I cannot anticipate when I go to bed that I'm going to wake up whether it's tomorrow or not. So yeah.
So that has in a way affected your daily functioning depending on how your schedule is been. It has varied.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that. So, well, before we conclude, apart from what you just mentioned, is there anything else that is important that we haven't discussed that you would like to bring up? That would make you feel helpful in a way? Anything for me to know?
No, not necessarily. Just that sometimes I randomly feel small bouts of anxiety or nervousness, but I can't really figure out if that is because of my lack of sleep or if it's genuine nervousness.